Welcome into the Steelers Talk Live Show. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Thank you guys for joining us here on a beautiful Monday to talk some Steelers football with us here after week 1 of NFL free agency. Obviously, there's still some players out there that the Steelers could pursue, namely at left guard, and hopefully we have an answer at quarterback here sooner rather than later. But for the most part, the con artist has made most of his veteran additions this offseason to this Steelers roster. So today we're going to be discussing all the biggest moves and all that different stuff, and I'll answer any and all questions you have on any and all players that the Steelers brought in last week. But we also have a full slate of Steelers news and rumors coverage for you guys here over the course of the evening. First up, the latest Steelers news and rumors. Going to be talking a little bit about Aaron Rodgers, talk a little bit about the Steelers roster on the whole heading into the 2026 season, and then also talk a little bit about a potential surprise trade that the Steelers could maybe pursue here in the coming days and weeks. Also, we'll shift our focus here to some draft content here. Last week it was all free agency. Now we can shift our focus a little bit back more over to the draft space, where I'm going to be talking about my updated round 1 draft targets for the Steelers after free agency, or at least the first week of free agency. Then I'll get into my full list of wide receiver draft targets for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Day 1, day 2, and day 3 draft targets at the wide receiver position. Then we'll get into our final segment today, which is my belief that the Steelers defense under Patrick Graham, the new defensive coordinator here in Pittsburgh, could be special. I'm going to tell you the reasons why I think that is towards the end of today's show. Now, I want to see who the real ones are down there in the comment section. We already have almost 400 people watching live on a Monday live stream. So type those me's in the chat if you are ready to talk some Steelers football. I missed you guys. It was a fun weekend here. You know, it was a really busy week, obviously, where me and Ponzi were just working nonstop. It was nice to have a little bit of a break, rest up over the weekend. Not a whole lot of news coming out for the Steelers over the weekend, so it was nice to get a little bit of a break there. But we are back here, and let's see who the real ones are. We got Logan, we got Rock, we got Nably, Michael, we've got Dot, we've got Robbie, we got my lovely fiance Cassie Voth in the chat, we've got Kevin Reed, Schuleberg, Ben, Dot, Kevin, we got Robbie, we got Nate, we've got Czar Craig, we've got Ray Moore, we've got Chase Jackson, we've got Gray Morrow, we got Mr. Deadhead, we got Chuck Dugan, we've got Gary Frank in the chat. Good to see you, Gary. We got Electric Divergent in the chat. Got Matt, John, Justin, Jess, Kevin, Chrissy. Got a good crew of Steelers fans, man, ready to talk some football today. And if you guys want to get on the show, if you guys want to get up right next to me here and you guys got something you want to say, something you want to ask, whatever it is, if you want to get on screen today, you guys can super chat any dollar amount to get up on screen next to me and have me talk about whatever Steelers topic you choose. If you have a question about somebody the Steelers went out to get in free agency, I can answer any and all questions on that. If you have a question about the Aaron Rodgers saga that's unfolding right now, be happy to answer that. If you got any questions about the Steelers draft strategy this year, I can share my 2 cents on that as well. If you guys got a question, any dollar amount, okay? $2, $5, or $10, $20, $50, $100. Does not matter to me. If you guys donate your hard-earned money to this channel, you are going to get your question answered, your comment shown on screen. Really do appreciate all of your guys' support in that regard. And if you guys want to skip the line and you want to be first up in terms of the questions that are asked, you guys can Venmo or PayPal donate to the show. You guys can send your Venmos to @Jack-Sperry on Venmo or @CaptainJackRabbit on PayPal. The reason why these comments get put at the top of the line is because we get to keep more of the proceeds that we get via Venmo and PayPal. Okay, guys? So if you're going to help us out, we're going to help you out. Skip the line. Get your question answered first on Venmo or PayPal. Again, you can find me at either one of those addresses there. The only thing about Venmo and PayPal, though, guys, is that your question won't be shown on screen. We'll still have a graphic for you, but I'll have to just read your question on the phone. That's the only downside to a Venmo or PayPal donation. Speaking of Super Chats, we already have a couple of them coming in. Heath Price coming in with a $2 Super Chat to kick us off. Thank you, Heath. I appreciate you. Then we got one from Hajile. I don't know if that's actually how you say it there, Ponzi, but I like that joke. $5 from Hajile here. Says, I know it might be unlikely, but is there any chance the Steelers trust Spencer Anderson at left guard? He was at least decent in my opinion. And I agree with you, Hajile. Like, he was decent at left guard when he was asked to play there the last couple of years. But are the Steelers just okay with decent, or do they want somebody that's a little bit better than that? And for me, I'd want somebody to be a little bit better than that, especially when there's good, affordable options still available on free agency, like Joel Bitonio, who's been one of the best starting left guards in football over the last half decade. I think he was the best offensive lineman, period, on the Browns last year. He can be got at 34 years old for like maybe $4 million on a one-year contract. Like, I think that would be a great value signing for the Steelers, and then that would still open the door to like drafting a left guard this year, having them learn behind Joel Bitonio or Brock Hoffman or Wyatt Teller or Greg Van Roten or one of these veterans that's still available in free agency, and kind of seeing, where it goes from there. Spencer Anderson, I think, has been fine, but, I don't think that he, is like anything more than like a replacement level starter, and I don't want that as one of the core starters on the Steelers offensive line. I want this offensive line to be as good as it possibly can be, and right now there's still opportunities to improve this group on the cheap. So for me, I would still want to go out and get some help at left guard. $2 from Clayton Polk says, with Patrick Queen back, do you see us taking Rodriguez? Talking about Jacob Rodriguez out of Texas Tech. Unfortunately, for all the people hoping the Steelers are going to draft a linebacker early, you've got 4 of them under contract, all on pretty decent deals. Like Patrick Queen has a $17.1 million cap hit this year. Peyton Wilson is also under contract. Malik Harrison under contract. And then they just re-signed Cole Holcomb. And you still got Carson Bruner on the roster as well as a core special teamer. So I just don't see where there's a lot of room to add rookies to this group, and especially early round rookies. Like, I think what they're going to do is they're going to try and get the most out of Patrick Queen and Peyton Wilson with a new defensive coordinator coming in, right? With Patrick Graham, like, hopefully Patrick Queen can return to all-pro form, because he was an all-pro with the Ravens under Mike McDonald, if you'll remember. Then he comes here to Pittsburgh, where linebackers go to die under Terrell Austin and Mike Tomlin with their old-school defensive scheme, and they weren't in positions to succeed, right? And also Peyton Wilson and Patrick Queen just weren't that great as run defenders either. Hopefully, now that we have new coaching and new management here, new scheme here in Pittsburgh, hopefully Patrick Queen and Peyton Wilson can become the linebacker tandem that we've hoped that they would be. Also, Malik Harrison is a good early down contributor in this group. Cole Holcomb can, do everything at a pretty decent level. So maybe they spend like a later round draft pick on a linebacker there, Clayton. But I think at this point, with all the veteran talent that you have in the room already, I just don't know if there's a lot of space to go out and, add another piece. Maybe they cut Malik Harrison at some point and then they decide to draft a linebacker. I'm not going to say it's completely impossible that they draft a linebacker, but right now, with the amount of veterans that you have in the group, I just don't know where a rookie would necessarily fit into the mix. All right, as you guys continue to get those super chats in, and before we get into our first segment today, I want to tell you about some new merch that we have here on Steelers Talk. If you were watching our live streams last week, you guys know that we have F the Ravens t-shirts up on our website right now, but if this is the first time you're watching us here over the last week or so, these are new t-shirts that we have on our website right now, $29.99. So if you hate the Baltimore Ravens as much as we do, we'd greatly appreciate if you support the channel. Chatsports.com/FRavens. I know Ponzi's putting that link down there in the comment section for you guys to click on and go make a purchase today. Really do appreciate all of your guys' support for the channel. All right, man. Well, let's get into the first segment of the day here. The latest Steelers news and rumors. Kay Adams and Colin Cowherd have said some very interesting things about the Pittsburgh Steelers and Aaron Rodgers heading into next season. I'm going to react to those here coming up. And then, could the Steelers trade for Trent Williams? PFF thinks that it's a possibility. We're going to talk about that in our next segment here, guys. And also stay tuned for our updated draft targets for the Pittsburgh Steelers over our next 2 segments. And then why I think Patrick Graham's defense here at the Steelers is finally going to be the group that is going to turn this defense from good to great here in 2026. All right. With that, let's get into our first segment of the day. Greatly appreciate your guys' support. And with that, let's get into the news and rumors. Steelers fans, you will not believe what Kay Adams and Colin Cowherd had to say about Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers heading into the 2026 NFL season. And today here on Steelers Talk, we're going to be breaking down the latest Steelers news and rumors. But before we get into what Kay Adams had to say about the Pittsburgh Steelers for this year, make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Daily Steelers videos for free on this channel, usually 2 of them a day. Also breaking news coverage. So if the con artist still has more in store for us, if there's a trade or if there's a cut or if they sign someone in free agency, we're going to get you guys breaking news coverage just like we did all of last week during NFL free agency. Also weekly live shows. We go live every Monday and Thursday during the offseason. We're also going to be live for every single pick of the 2026 NFL draft. All that content is 100% free, guys. There's a reason why we are the people's choice for Steelers news and rumors right here on YouTube with over 116,000 subscribers. So if you guys want to join our family today and you bleed black and gold, make sure you click that subscribe button and join the Steelers Talk revolution today. All right, so now let's get into Kay Adams, all right, on Up and Adams, says that the Steelers roster looks quote-unquote sexy heading into the 2026 season after adding a number of players in NFL free agency here during the first week. This is what Kay had to say about the Steelers roster. The Steelers are getting Michael Pittman Jr. as the second option to DK Metcalf. You needed that desperately. Rico Dowdle, this is a true lead back to lean on that can complement Jaylen Warren beautifully. Then they get Jamel Dean from the Bucks, lowest passer rating against of any cornerback in football last year, so that's going to go a long way. They really addressed a lot of problems, which I love. If Aaron Rodgers does run it back, and I would be so shocked if he doesn't now with these moves, the Steelers have a much stronger roster. They're really sticking out. They're sexy to me. Well, listen, man, like, assuming Aaron Rodgers is back, this is, in my opinion, the best and most complete Steelers roster that we have had in a while, all right? And this includes last year's roster, where I thought last year's roster was the most complete and best Steelers roster that we've seen in a little bit. Now, obviously, I think the defense kind of underperformed under Terrell Austin and Mike Tomlin. Obviously, the wide receiver room wasn't good enough, and you fixed a lot of those issues from a roster perspective this year, in my opinion. And I understand that, you know, in years past, you know, we as Steelers fans get our hopes up before the start of the season and then they end up disappointing us. And I get that people don't want to be hurt again, but I see so much negativity and pessimism surrounding this Pittsburgh Steelers team, and I see so many people just saying we should just blow it up and we should completely start over, trade all of our good veterans and just completely start over with a new young quarterback. And I just can't get there in terms of the pessimism and the negativity. I think that there's a lot of things to be optimistic about and a lot of stuff to be excited for, even with this Pittsburgh Steelers roster coming off a 10-7 season. And coming off of that, I think you're upgrading your coaching. I think you're upgrading your roster on both sides of the ball. And we can start here with the offense, where I'm pretty excited to see what this offense can look like next year, especially if Aaron Rodgers comes back and maybe they sign like a Joel Bitonio at left guard. Like, I would absolutely love that. He shouldn't be too expensive. He's a really good 34-year-old veteran. Like, yeah, he's getting up there in age, but he was probably Cleveland's best offensive lineman last year. You add him to this offensive line. I mean, Dylan Cook played great last year down the stretch. Zach Frazier, Mason McCormick, Troy Fautano are all young on their rookie contracts and all playing very well. Then at the receiver position, looks like it's going to be a lot better. DK Metcalf, Michael Pittman Jr., and then you're probably going to take a first-rounder in the NFL draft this year to pair with those guys. Then you got Pat Freiermuth and Darnell Washington at tight end, and you've got Rico Dowdle and Jaylen Warren at running back. That's a pretty stacked cupboard for Aaron Rodgers and Mike McCarthy to work with, and it's definitely better than what the Steelers had to work with last year from both a coaching, play calling, and personnel standpoint, okay? So I'm really optimistic about the Steelers offense heading into the year. But also, guys, I think Pittsburgh's going to run like a big nickel defense under Patrick Graham. Now, I know that, you know, Graham and McCarthy have talked about keeping the quote-unquote 3-4 in place here in Pittsburgh, and I do think that their base kind of defense will be a 3-4, but the modern-day NFL, you know, scheme is nickel, guys, and if you have the capability of playing big nickel a lot, you really should. Just look at the Seattle Seahawks and what they were able to do once they added kind of that hybrid linebacker slot player, that big nickel in Nick Emmanwori in the NFL draft last year. It completely changed the way they play defense. defense, and that Seattle defense was one of the best that we've seen in football over the last several years. Can take a look here at the defensive line depth chart that the Steelers have going into the season right now, and it's pretty darn good. Like, you got Alex Highsmith, you got Cam Hayward, Derek Harmon, going into his second year, TJ Watt on the other side there, and, that's a pretty formidable, four-man front there for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Then you get to the linebacking room, and you got Patrick Queen as your number one dude, and then Peyton Wilson, Malik Harrison. We'll see how those guys kind of sort out their role. Hopefully Peyton Wilson can finally become that three-down player that we've been hoping that he could be coming out of NC State, but Harrison's a good early down player if you need him to play that role as a thumping run stuffer. And then when you look at the secondary with this big nickel formation, like, you got Joey Porter Jr. and Jamel Dean as two lockdown man corners. Then you got Jalen Ramsey playing that big nickel spot in kind of that, Nick Emmanwori, Derwin James type of big nickel spot. Then you got Deshaun Elliott and Jaquan Brisker at safety. Those guys are very solid. And then you got some really good depth as well at that position as well in both corner and safety. So overall, I have a lot of optimism surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers going into the season, guys. And I think the coaching is better. I think that the personnel is better. And could the quarterback be better as well, even if it might be the same guy? Well, Colin Cowherd says that Aaron Rodgers is still a top 10 NFL quarterback. I'll let you guys know here in a second what Cowherd had to say about AR12 here, or AR8, whatever you guys want to call him here. But let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. What is your level of optimism for the Pittsburgh Steelers heading into 2026? Put it on a scale of 1, meaning this team sucks, why are we trying to win again, to 10, meaning this team has a chance to win the Super Bowl next year. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section for today's pinned question. In just a second here, I'm going to tell you about a merch opportunity that we have, a new merch opportunity that we have up on our website right now. While I tell you about that opportunity, put a number between 1 and 10 for me down there in the comments. And if you guys hate the Baltimore Ravens as much as we do here on Steelers Talk, that's exactly why we made this t-shirt, guys. The F the Ravens Steelers Talk t-shirt is now available on our website, chatsports.com/FRavens. This t-shirt is $29.99 on our website right now, and that link is down there in the comments and description of today's show. You click that link, it's going to take you right to where you can make a purchase. We have sizes ranging from extra small to like 5XL, so whatever your shape or size is, we have a shirt that can fit you. So go chatsports.com/FRavens. If you guys want to help support the show today, I greatly appreciate your guys' support. All right, so now shifting our focus here to Colin Cowherd, who said recently that he thinks Aaron Rodgers is still a top 10 quarterback in the National Football League today. This is what Colin Cowherd had to say about the Steelers' presumptive starting quarterback here in 2026. If you have a quarterback draft for next year only, Aaron Rodgers would make my top 10. And you think that's crazy, but the Steelers were a broken, dysfunctional offense. I thought Aaron had a great year. It was a completely broken ecosystem offensively. They didn't turn it over. They didn't have penalties. They were good in the red zone. They were good after the catch. That's Aaron. What else changed? If it was Aaron, if you're talking 1 year, I think he's a top 10 quarterback. For 17 games, I would take Aaron over all but 8 guys in the league. And most of those guys I would take because they're a little younger and a little more athletic. But go look at what the Steelers were, and by just adding Aaron, they look way better. I can't actually believe this, guys, because I'm usually the one clowning on Colin Cowherd on this show, but I got to defend Colin on this one a little bit here, guys. Like, I don't think Colin is completely crazy for this take, all right? I think he does have some sound arguments here. Now, I do want to be clear that if I had to rank starting quarterbacks in the NFL for one season heading into next year, I wouldn't have Rodgers in my top 10 right now, all right? I would probably have him in my top 15, and I still think he can be a more than serviceable NFL starting quarterback that can win a lot of games, especially with a great supporting cast around him. But top 10 might be a little bit too rich for me, but a lot of the points that Cowherd makes, like, I agree with those, and I still think that Aaron Rodgers, if anything, he elevated this Pittsburgh Steelers offense last year, and now that the Steelers are putting a better surrounding cast around him, especially at the wide receiver position, hopefully this defense turns into what we were expecting that defense to look like last year, and if those two things happen, like, Like Aaron, I think, has a real chance to turn this team from like a 10-7 group to a team that can win 12 or like 13 games and really contend in 2026. Like you take a look at what he had to work with in the wide receiver room last year, guys. We've talked about this, at large and, like pretty much every single week now, but he had no help at the wide receiver position last year pretty much. Like he had DK Metcalf. He had 0 receivers with over 1,000 yards receiving. DK probably would have gotten there if he didn't get suspended, but you guys get my point there. But then nobody else in this wide receiver room got to 400 yards receiving. I mean, Roman Wilson was 3rd on your team among receivers in receiving yards and receptions, and he was benched for most of the year, right? He didn't start the year playing all that much, and then he got benched after they brought in Thielen and Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who really didn't provide all that much for the Steelers' offense either. And despite that terrible wide receiver room where DK Metcalf was getting double-teamed on almost every single play, and there wasn't a whole lot of options for Aaron to throw the ball down the field. And by the way, people acknowledge this about the Steelers' offense, yet for some reason they seem to blame Aaron for the lack of downfield shots down the field and say he doesn't want to throw it down the field. It's like, how about we get him some wide receiver help? Because despite that bottom 3 wide receiver room, this offense was very functional last year. Like Rodgers played very smart football, didn't turn the football over, didn't take a lot of sacks, put the ball into positions where Jaylen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell and Darnell Washington and DK Metcalf could make plays after the catch. The Steelers led the league in yards after the catch last year. That's Aaron playing smart football, and they were good in the red zone as well last year. And no, when you look at the numbers from Aaron Rodgers last year at large, it does not look like a quarterback that is like an amazing top 10 level quarterback, all right? But you have to put it in the proper context of what kind of quarterback Aaron is right now and what was the supporting cast. Like, I think we all agree Arthur Smith was not the best offensive play caller last year. I mean, for Christ's sake, he played Jonnu Smith more than Pat Freiermuth, right? And then also Rodgers is a non-mobile pocket passer that has to have good play calling and weapons around him in order to succeed, because he can't make plays out of structure like he used to, and some of the best quarterbacks in the league can. But you know who else was like that? That Tom Brady, when he was 42 years old back in 2019 with the New England Patriots. I mean, these were the GOAT's numbers in 2019 when he was 42 years old, when he also only had one good receiver, Julian Edelman. I mean, like, he didn't have a receiver outside of Edelman that had over 400 yards receiving that year. And you look at the numbers, man, they're very, very similar to Aaron Rodgers's. In fact, we can take a look at some of the main numbers here. Brady in 2019 and Rodgers in 2025. I mean, in most of these categories, Rodgers is outperforming a 42-year-old Tom Brady in his final season with the New England Patriots. Both of these teams also won their division, lost in the first round of the playoffs. Like, there's a lot of similarities between Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady when they were 42 years old, and then what did Brady do when he was 43, guys? We all remember it. He turned magically back into a top 10 level performer at the position when he got himself an offensive-minded head coach that knew what he wanted to do and wanted to throw the ball down the field, right? When he got Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Antonio Brown and Rob Gronkowski, and he got that big upgrade at the receiving weapons positions. And you guys can see the results. Like, Tom Brady went from a quarterback that was not like a producer at a top 10 level. People were saying he was falling off a cliff, that he wasn't a good quarterback anymore, to now he goes to Tampa Bay where he's got better play calling, better weapons around him, and now he's back to being like a top 10 level quarterback and wins the freaking Super Bowl at age 43. So the Steelers, a team that is trying to win now, they're trying to put themselves in position to try and win a Super Bowl in 2026. What quarterback out there gives the Steelers a better opportunity to go on a run when we get to January next year with a better receiving core, with now an offensive-minded head coach with a history of throwing the ball down the field? Like, there's a lot of similarities between this year's Pittsburgh Steelers team and that 2020 Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. And, I mean, we have an opportunity to bring in maybe our Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, who is also an all-time great quarterback, also has all-time great football IQ and mental processing ability, and also has all-time great arm talent that, guess what, Rodgers still possesses. Like, Rodgers can still make crazy-ass throws to all levels of the field, and we saw that last year, even into the late portions of the season. And for me, guys, when I look at the Steelers' offensive film, Aaron Rodgers was not the issue with the Pittsburgh Steelers offense in 2025. And I do believe that with the right help, like Aaron Rodgers could still be like maybe a top 10 level performer at the position. All right. Now, he's someone that is really, really reliant on having good wide receivers and good pass protection and a good play caller and a good defense around him. But because he's one of the cheaper quarterback options out there on the market, the Steelers can afford to try and put that elite, surrounding cast around an all-time great quarterback here. So who knows how much better Aaron Rodgers could be in 2026 with this improved weaponry. Like, they're probably going to draft a wide receiver in round 1, and that's to pair with Michael Pittman Jr., who I consider to be a legit wide receiver too. You give those supplementary weapons to DK Metcalf, you're going to get a lot more one-on-one opportunities for Metcalf, and Metcalf is going to be a better player for this offense. It's going to open everything up for Aaron Rodgers, and you just need somebody that can get the ball to these playmakers in space and with good accuracy. And I think Rodgers still brings that to the table. And all the things that I've been talking about, guys, is probably the reasons why all of his teammates, literally everybody in the Steelers locker room, want him back last year or this year, because they realized that he was far from the issue for the Pittsburgh Steelers here during the 2025 season. This is what ESPN's Brooke Pryor had to say about the entire Steelers locker room wanting Rodgers back for another season. She says the Steelers players are more than open to Rodgers returning to Pittsburgh. They want the 4-time league MVP back and conveyed as much to various members of the Steelers organization during their exit meetings last week, according to sources. Almost all Steelers players praised Rodgers during their exit interviews, and most, if not all of them, want the veteran quarterback to return in 2026. His support among players was universal, and those around the organization pointed out how beloved and respected Rodgers was there. And even his backup quarterback, Mason Rudolph, this past week praised Rodgers' approach and leadership at the position, and I think that this was a great inside look to the weekly preparation that Rodgers led inside the Steelers locker room, where he was essentially another coach that was playing the games with the players. This is what Rudy had to say last week. I think Rodgers just has a great process early in the week. He was coming in Wednesday morning with an ultra-high level of understanding. He had watched a lot of tape. He had self-scouted ourselves the last few games. Hey, what are some tendencies maybe we're giving up? Maybe we're showing on film. He had done a lot of homework before the coaches, and he was involved much more than a young player would be. He took the initiative to have guys over each and every Tuesday. We'd watch an hour of tape, take a break, go have some food, and then we'd go back into the huge media room. And he'd have notes. He'd talk about maybe some new signals for the week, discarding old signals that he felt like we had shown too much. He would pop quiz the room. What'd you think about their starting cornerback in the left side of the week? Left side this week? Does he travel? What are their top 3 coverages so far you've seen out of nickel defense? Out of base defense, he wouldn't rake you over the coals if you got the wrong answer that early in the week, but he sort of set the precedent where he wanted guys to start watching tape on their own. And I don't know about you guys, but that's the kind of leadership that I want in my building from my starting quarterback. Somebody that holds people to an extremely high standard, is the most prepared guy in the room, is essentially a coach on the field. Okay, Aaron Rodgers' football intellect is legendary, and he still has the arm talent up there up top as well. So if the Steelers can protect him, which they did a pretty good job of last year, if they can get him the weapons, which the Steelers didn't do a good job of last year, if they can give him proper scheme to get guys open quickly, I think Mike McCarthy's going to be able to do that. I think Aaron Rodgers gives this team easily the best chance to have success here in 2026, and with the roster that the Steelers have, as we talked about before, I think that Rodgers has a chance to maybe put this team in contention as this team's starting quarterback in 2026. Also, it's worth noting that Ray Filipalda from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette has reported that the Steelers did not pursue Malik Willis or Kyler Murray in free agency this year. They seem dead set on Rodgers returning for another season, and the reason for that is for all the reasons I just laid out. He gives the Pittsburgh Steelers the best chance to have success this year. He's an excellent mentor to a young guy that they do believe in. I believe in Will Howard, and I think that this is the guy that the Steelers players want as their starting quarterback, and the Steelers are doing everything in their power to try to make him their starting quarterback here in 2026. And honestly, I think more people should be excited about that possibility. I know that once again the Steelers lose in the first round of the playoffs, so we have to have a new quarterback, but it's like, maybe we shouldn't throw the Aaron Rodgers out with the bathwater here, right? Like maybe Rodgers wasn't the biggest issue. Maybe you fix the defensive coaching, you bring in an offensive mind that can do a better job than Arthur Smith, and you actually get your non-mobile starting quarterback some weapons that can allow him to win within structure. What a concept, right? So I think that's probably what the Steelers are trying to do here. I think that's the right plan, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Aaron Rodgers can do as this team's starting quarterback here in 2026. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. What is your level of excitement for Aaron Rodgers at quarterback this season if he comes back? Put it on a scale of 1 to 10. For me down there in the comments section, 1 meaning not excited whatsoever to 10 meaning I'm super excited. He could be the next Tom Brady, that he was there with the Bucs here in Pittsburgh. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. All right, now the final topic I want to talk about today is an interesting trade rumor from Pro Football Focus's Dalton Wasserman, who suggests that the Pittsburgh Steelers should try and trade for superstar left tackle Trent Williams here. It's being reported that Williams is looking for a massive deal, and right now the 49ers are not willing to abide by his demands. Ian Rappaport said last week the 49ers are now said to be open to trading Pro Bowl left tackle Trent Williams. Sources say if the situation doesn't get resolved, a resolution has not been easy, and Williams is frustrated with the process. He's due $32 million in salary and $38 million plus cap number here in 2026. This is what Dalton Wasserman has to say about this idea of the Steelers pursuing Trent Williams in a trade. You're talking about a player who would improve any offense he goes to. Pittsburgh would make sense to me. He'd be a major upgrade there. Still, even at his age, one of the elite players in football. Still a top 5 tackle in all of football. I think you're talking about a guy you move mountains for, right? I mean, he's still one of the best players in the game. Well, let's talk about this here, man. Trent Williams getting up there in age, no doubt about that. 37 years old, but he's still massive, and he is still one of, if not the best left tackle in all the game. He's a good run blocker. He's an elite pass protector. He always has been, really. And Pittsburgh does have a potential question mark at left tackle, and are trying to win now. So, like, if they have any qualms about Dylan Cook repeating the success that he had last year, or Broderick Jones not being able to step up, maybe the Steelers, who do have over $30 million in cap space still available to them here in 2026, might consider something like this. Now, I will say, keep in mind that Williams is seeking a record-setting contract, all right? And we did see Laramie Tunsil of the Washington Commanders get over $30 million a season this offseason. And before that, like, you can take a look at the highest paid left tackles in the game. Like the next highest is like 28.5. So if the Steelers are going to trade for Trent Williams and get a new deal done with him, my guess is you got to, reset the market at like $30.5 million per season for somebody that's 37 years old already. Now, like I said, he's still an awesome player and all that different stuff, and I'm sure he could do a lot of good things for the Pittsburgh Steelers next year. But I think that this one will probably be too expensive for Omar Khan and the Steelers' blood. All right. First of all, Aaron Rodgers is a quarterback that gets the ball out of his hands abundantly quickly, so I don't know if having an elite pass protector like Trent Williams necessarily is a ginormous need for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But also, like, to get Trent Williams, it's going to be pretty pricey to get this guy in the building, not only in terms of making him the highest paid left tackle in football history at 37 years old, but also you're going to have to trade him, and I don't think the 49ers are going to come even close to just giving him away. You guys can take a look at the trade that the Commanders and Texans did last year for Laramie Tunsil. Like, the Commanders gave up quite a bit of draft capital to be able to land their left tackle of the future. And something that I could see maybe the 49ers doing here is like the Trent Williams and a fourth to the Steelers in exchange for the Steelers' second round pick this year, pick number 53. I could see that being a somewhat realistic trade package that the 49ers might entertain. And then, of course, the Steelers would be giving Williams a massive contract. So for me, guys, this is too expensive. I would rather just go into the season with Dylan Cook because I think he showed enough on film to tell me that, he can be a more than serviceable left tackle for the Pittsburgh Steelers next season. But let me know what you guys think about this idea down there in the comments section. Would you make this trade and then pay Trent Williams $30+ million a season on an extension? Give me an A for accept or D for decline down there in the comments section. And that'll be it for today's edition of Steelers News and Rumors by Chat Sports. Thank you guys so much for joining me here this evening. We're going to have another slate of Steelers content for you guys tomorrow, so make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Till next time, guys, here we go, Steelers. All right, Ponzi, a beast of a first segment there. Now we're going to get into our draft target segments. First, I'm going to tell you my updated list of round one draft targets for the Steelers after NFL free agency. I think that the draft strategy, specifically in round one, is becoming more and more clear for Pittsburgh. I'll let you guys know what my thoughts are here coming up, and then we'll hone in specifically at the wide receiver position, because I think wide receiver is the position, guys, where the Steelers are going to invest the most in the NFL draft. 2, probably at least draft picks, maybe even 3. I'll tell you all my favorite prospects in day 1, day 2, and day 3 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then don't go anywhere, because our final segment today, I'm going to tell you why I think the Steelers defense this year under Patrick Graham might be special. All right. So let's catch up on some super chats here. All right. From Jonathan Coon. You want to read the question here, Ponzi, while I hydrate? Never mind. He's setting up his mic. Not prepared Ponzi over here. Says, a lot of the players that signed off this offseason seem to feel at home in Pittsburgh. Do you think that Raj will have better play if he returns? Well, I mean, I think I probably just answered your question during that last segment. I think it's pretty clear how I feel about Aaron Rodgers, guys. And I think people trying to move on from Aaron Rodgers are people that are trying to throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. Like people, the way that people think about NFL offenses is that like a quarterback, or an offense is only as good as its quarterback. So if they see the quarterback's numbers are like, kind of middling, not fantastic, whatever, they're like, oh, the quarterback must stink. We have to get rid of the quarterback. And it's like, I take more of a holistic approach where it's like, okay, what style of quarterback is this? First of all, Rodgers is a non-mobile, in-structure playmaker with good IQ and good arm talent. Okay, similar to Tom Brady, similar to Peyton Manning in his prime, similar to Drew Brees, similar to Matthew Stafford now, right? But, for that style of quarterback to have success on like a production and an efficiency level, he has to have a playmaker that can scheme people open quickly against whatever coverage that they face, and then they also have to have weapons at the receiving positions that can get open quickly and separate versus man coverage. I think that in both of those categories, Rodgers had lackluster help in that regard last year. Like Arthur Smith, I think was okay, but he certainly wasn't good. I think that Mike McCarthy instantly upgrades the offensive play calling, and then they're already making additions, and good additions, to the Steelers' passing attack, right? Michael Pittman Jr., they're probably going to spend a couple of draft picks at the wide receiver position in the draft this year, and I think the defense is going to be better too. So, like, if everything around Rodgers is going to be better, and last year we went 10-7, and our offense was functional with Rodgers last year despite all that shit going wrong, like, I'm looking at this situation like a 12 or 13 win season if everything goes right, if Rodgers stays healthy, if McCarthy and Graham are as good as I think they're going to be play calling wise. Like, I think there's reason for optimism. Like, I think there's a lot of similarities this year, Ponzi, between the 2020 Buccaneers and the 2026 Pittsburgh Steelers. I see a lot of similarities between those two rosters and those two teams. $5 here from Bernard Nixon says A-Rod will be back. It's a matter of when, not if, like last year. I agree with that. Like, if the Steelers are not pursuing Malik Willis, Kyler Murray in free agency, like, they know who their quarterback's going to be next year, right? Like, I can buy that maybe they think Aaron Rodgers is better than, like, Kyler Murray and Malik Willis is, but if they had any doubt that he wasn't going to come back, like, do you really think the Steelers feel like Will Howard's a better starting option for them than Malik Willis or Kyler Murray next year? If they do think that, I think they're kind of idiotic, if I'm being honest with you. I like Will, and I think that he's got some upside, but he hasn't proven himself in the league yet, man. So I like, their behavior right now tells me that they're like 100% sure Rodgers is coming back. So I think, like Bernard says, it's probably more of a matter of when and not if. $2 from Mario says, I'm just going to say this, Davante Adams. Not likely, because the Rams just paid Davante a pretty big roster bonus last week, and I don't think the Rams want to just forfeit that money. So I think Davante will be back with the Rams next year. Maybe he's included in a deal for A.J. Brown, but, like, the Steelers don't have anything that they could offer on that level. I would love to bring in Davante Adams. Like, maybe he becomes available at the trade deadline. And maybe the Steelers need another receiver, and like all their younger receivers have sucked to start the season. Maybe that's the case. And maybe Rodgers doesn't like working with any of the rookies, which is a possibility, I would say. But, I just don't really see this as a possibility. It's a fun thought, Mario. I would have loved this last year, but of course the Rams beat us to the punch and got Davante last offseason. $2 from Isaha Ballard says, what scenario do we not take a wide receiver round one? Yeah, if they trade for A.J. Brown, if they sign Stephon Diggs or Tyreek Hill, one of those guys that's like a legitimate bona fide starter. And then also, like, if they really, really like Dylan Thieneman from Oregon, a safety, if they really like Venga Iwane from Penn State, if they really like one of those other positions, theoretically they could go receiver in round 2.
Maybe like a Ty Simpson?
Yeah, Ty Simpson, another situation, good one there, Ponzi. Like if they fall in love with Ty Simpson and want to take him, if Rodgers retires and they love Simpson, I could see that being a scenario where they don't take a receiver round 1. But I'd say right now, I feel like the probability, like definitely more than 50% chance. It's probably honestly closer to 75% chance in my mind that the Steelers take a receiver round 1. They need to get some juice in this receiver room, Ponzi, and specifically in the route running department, because right now you got DK and Pittman, but neither of those guys are necessarily like high-level separators versus man. And if you're going to have Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback specifically, you need somebody that teams are afraid to play man against. And there's some guys in this class that, can do that, like Mekhi Lemon and Jordan Tyson and, Zachariah Branch and, Casey Concepcion and Omar Cooper Jr. Like, there's guys in this class that can certainly strike that fear in opposing defenses, but I'm not sure if there's too many of them that will for sure do it day one. So you got to get that guy early, in my opinion. $5 from Bernard says, Mulsey says A-Rod is the weakest link if he's back next year, and he said there's 21 QBs that he'd take over him right now. I disagree with that. I've seen some of these lists of quarterbacks that Steelers fans would rather have than Aaron Rodgers, and they include like Cam Ward and Daniel Jones and like some of the, not Sam Howell, but all these QBs that like either A, haven't proven themselves, or B, have only proven themselves with elite supporting casts, and they're comparing them to Rodgers, who had a bottom 3 wide receiver room last year. Like, I feel like what so many people do is they just look at the athleticism of a quarterback, or the quote-unquote tools, the athletic tools of a quarterback, and they base their evaluation based on that, and then the base production numbers, right? And they don't put anything into proper context. And I think that's what, I think Mulsey's, perfectly fine commentator, all that stuff, but I think he's dead wrong on this. I think next year Rodgers would not be the weak link. If anything, last year he was the best thing about the Steelers offense last year, keeping that ship, somewhat operational. Like, if you had Mason Rudolph as your starting quarterback last year, if you had Kirk Cousins as your starting quarterback last year, you probably win like 3 or 4 games, in my opinion. And you ended up winning 10 because like Aaron Rodgers would put this team in good positions to succeed, get the ball out to playmakers in space, getting the ball out of his hands quickly. Like, he understood the strengths and the weaknesses of the offense. He understood that the wide receiver room wasn't good enough to separate down the field, so he didn't force the issue. That's smart. People blame Rodgers for playing too conservatively and not wanting to get hit, but it's like, no, he's just playing smart football. And, he delivered in some big-ass moments last year, man. Like 2-minute drills with the season on the line. Both Ravens games, delivered game-winning touchdowns. Like, what? Like, dude, this guy delivered for this team last year, and now they're getting him the help that he actually needs, and now we're going to throw the baby out with the bathwater and start a fucking rookie, essentially, in Will Howard? No. Like, no, I'm sorry. No, that's not the decision to make, in my opinion. $5 again from Bernard Nixon. Says Peyton was the weakest link with Denver his last year and won a Super Bowl. It can be done. Having a great roster is what it takes. Yeah, but Denver's defense that year was legendary, right? So, like, the Steelers, that's a that's a high bar for the Steelers defense to clear, not to mention you're going to have an opponent and opponents in the Super Bowl and throughout the playoffs that just can't do anything offensively against this defense. So I would love for Patrick Graham to get this defense to like a legendary level, like that Denver group, Bernard. But man, that is a high bar to clear. I think Rodgers is by far and away a better quarterback right now than Peyton was in his final year. Let's put it that way. $5 from Mexamander says if Aaron Rodgers does sign to the Steelers, I can see a Super Bowl team for sure, and the defense is still stacked, so the Steelers do have a chance. And this is all I'm trying to say, man. Like, the Steelers are clearly trying to win now. They wouldn't be keeping Patrick Queen and Jalen Ramsey on the roster if that wasn't the case. Like, they're adding veterans. They're signing 28-year-old wide receivers to 3-year extensions. Like, that's not the move of a team that's trying to rebuild and, get younger and do all these things that a lot of people seem to want to do. Like, no, you're trying to win now. So the question becomes, which quarterback gives you the best chance? And to me, the answer is clearly Aaron Rodgers. Like, it's not even close at this point. Like, it's not even close. Like, I'm trying to think of other options that would even, put you in the conversation. I think the next closest is Mac Jones. And you'd have to pay a second-round pick, maybe more, to get him, and you'd have to give him a massive contract extension. Rodgers is cheaper. He has way more playoff experience. He still has awesome arm talent. Like, Mason Rudolph and all these players want him back because of his leadership and his ability to teach football to these players. Like, Rodgers is clearly the best option, in my opinion. What's up?
Next best might be Ty Simpson.
Yeah,
Besides,
and even then, he's a rookie.
Exactly.
A rookie quarterback has never won a Super Bowl in year one of his NFL career. Never. So, like, if you want to play the odds here and you want to say which guy gives you the best chance to, go on that run and take you to the next level, if that's what the goal of the season is, it's clearly Aaron Rodgers. Now, if the Steelers wanted to completely blow it up, if they wanted to rebuild, if they wanted to get younger and get rid of their veterans and, rebuild this thing from the studs, then sure, go with Will Howard. Sure, draft Ty Simpson. Sure, bring in Anthony Richardson. But, like, those guys just don't give you a chance to win now necessarily. So I think Rodgers does. And I think that's the long short of it there, guys. That's the calculus for why I think Rodgers is the guy you want to bring back this year. Beeman with a 2 says C. Chris Bell would be an A+ slot wide receiver 3 for us, and he's 6'2". Here's the thing, Beeman. All right, and I'm going to talk about this on our wide receiver video here. Bell is very much a yak monster, and like you said, he's big. And I think there's going to be a team that loves him. But is he what the Steelers need, right? This is what the Steelers need, is somebody that's going to consistently beat man coverage, okay? Because right now, DK Metcalf, not going to consistently beat man coverage unless it's one-on-one. Michael Pittman Jr., he's not a vertical threat either. So right now, there's nobody to really put the fear of God in opposing defenses in terms of going man-to-man coverage, all right? That's what the Steelers need. And Chris Bell is like a pure yak threat. He reminds me a lot of Rashee Rice coming out of SMU. All right. Like, I love Chris Bell. I think he's a good player. All right. Like, I think he's going to be good for somebody. And, hey, if the Steelers draft a receiver in round 1 and then they're like, hey, we want to get Chris Bell as another yak weapon for us, I love it. But, like, if you're bringing in Chris Bell to be your wide receiver 3, like, I don't see, the guy on the Steelers wide receiver room that can run the full route tree and can, consistently separate versus man coverage. And I think that's the missing piece that the Steelers need to get. $5 from Bernard here says Aaron Rodgers is 5-0 versus the Ravens, 8 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He owns the Ratbirds and the Bears. Yeah, man. I mean, those are the most important games of the year, and he delivered in both of them for us last year with lackluster wide receiver help. Now, sure, did he get a little bit of luck there with the Ravens missing the field goal at the end? Sure, but did the Ravens also get a bit lucky with Chris Boswell missing the extra point? Absolutely, right? Like Rodgers led the 2-minute drive. Like, he got us the lead with a minute left. Like, he did his job, right? So Absolutely. I think Rodgers is more than capable of delivering in those big moments. He showed it last year. $2 from Bernard says, I think Aaron Rodgers is still up there with Mahomes. I'm not going to go quite there, Bernard. You know that I still think Rodgers is a good, solid NFL starter, somewhere between 10 and 15, 11 and 15, 12 and 15, somewhere in that range. All right, I'm not going to go, elite caliber anymore. You just can't move around. And I think that some of the best can have that element of out-of-structure playmaking that Rodgers just doesn't have right now. $2 from Bernard says, Jack, people think you're making excuses for Aaron Rodgers. I think it's just explanations. Like it's you can call it what you want, but Tom Brady wasn't a good NFL starting quarterback without good receivers. So, I don't know what you want me to say. When you don't have a quarterback that is mobile enough to make plays out of structure, you got to have good play calling. You got to have good weapons to throw to. He didn't have either of them last year. So, it's hard for me to completely just roast Aaron Rodgers for that. When I think if Aaron Rodgers and Matthew Stafford switched teams last year and he had Devontae Adams and Sean McVay and Puka Nacua, I think Rodgers has a better season than Matthew Stafford would have had here in Pittsburgh with the weapons that we had. That's my take. All right, I just don't think that non-mobile quarterbacks can survive in an environment or at least play at a top 10 level when you don't have good weapons to throw to and your only good receiver is getting double teamed on every play. That's just not an environment conducive for success. I think that's a more than reasonable explanation for some of these things. $2 from Gary Frank says, what do we need to guarantee a playoff win? You can never guarantee a playoff win, Gary Frank. I hate to break it to you, but it's the National Football League, and this is why we love this league, is that any given Sunday, man, even the best teams can lose. So I can never guarantee you a playoff win. All you can do is raise your chances. And I think the best thing you can do right now, sign a left guard like Joel Bitonio, and then get your quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, draft a really good receiver in round one, and make sure you hit on it. You do those three things, I think this team is in pretty darn good shape. $2 from Clayton Polk says, who was your favorite free agent signing? My favorite was Jamel Dean. Jamel Dean was the only guy that I gave an A-plus grade to. He's still one of the best cover corners in the league. At 29 years old, he's coming off the best year of his career, lowest passer rating allowed in the league last year, and you get him for almost $8 million less per season than Alontae fucking Taylor. Sign me up for that, man. That was a hell of a value by the Pittsburgh Steelers. $10 from Ant Dallas Sign says every draft pick from the 2022 class is no longer on the team. Kevin Colbert had some bad draft classes on his way out the door and did nothing in free agency. He needs to be blamed more than Tomlin. Thoughts? Kevin Colbert, by the time that he was done here in Pittsburgh, he was probably one of the worst GMs in the league, and thank Christ we replaced him with somebody that I hold in pretty high regard in Omar Khan. He's been doing a pretty bad job with the wide receiver room over the last couple of years, but it looks like he's going to do a better job this year with the move for Michael Pittman Jr. But I think his draft classes have been really good, Omar's, since he's gotten here. And obviously all of those to this point have been in conjunction with Mike Tomlin. So, Kevin Colbert was an absolute joke. I don't know if I want to blame him or Tomlin more. Probably Colbert, because I think Tomlin is a good leader and stuff like that. But some of the decisions Tomlin made and some of the things that he directed his GMs to do was not good. Make no mistake, Ponzi. Tomlin's decision was to draft Kenny Pickett. It was not Kevin Colbert's. It was Tomlin wanted him, so Colbert drafted him. And I'm sure it was a consensus decision there, but it's the decision that Tomlin probably had final say on. $5 from Mario says Steelers fans are whiny. They wanted to keep Kenny Pickett and Justin Fields when they were buns. Yeah, man. And I was in favor of moving on from both of those guys. You guys will remember, I wanted to move off of Kenny Pickett a couple years ago, and it turns out I was right about that. And then I wanted to move off of Justin Fields last year. At least to this point, it looks like I was right about that decision as well. If Justin Fields was the starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers last year, Ponzi, how many games do they win? 4, 5, maybe 6? They're not a playoff team with Justin Fields. They're not. I know people always point to the 4-2 record when Fields was the quarterback here, but in the 4 games that they won, the defense gave up 10 points a game. The Steelers' defense was not that good last year, man. Like, they lost every game with Justin Fields at starting quarterback where the defense gave up 20 or more points, which was pretty much every game last year for the Steelers' defense. So, like, you combine that with the wide receiver room the Steelers had last year, the Steelers would have had a terrible season last year with Justin Fields as their quarterback. So the fact that I am, for the first time in a while, advocating for the Steelers to keep their starting quarterback from the season prior tells you that I saw enough from Rodgers' film last year to let me know that, you know, he was one of the better aspects of the Steelers' offense last year, and he's not one of the elements that should be let go of. $2 from Michelle West says, do you think about Fields going to Kansas City? I told our Chiefs host today at Chat Sports, have fun with that fan base, man. Have fun with the Justin Fields people wanting him to play over Patrick Mahomes, because you know it's coming. But listen, man, I think it's a good opportunity for Justin, you know, going to an awesome organization with an awesome offensive-minded head coach that knows how to get the most out of these super talented quarterbacks, always has been. And I think he's hoping that he can turn into the next Sam Darnold. I question his ability to mentally process, the speed in which he does it, the decision-making, the vision. I'm rooting for him. He's a good kid. He works hard, but to this point, it hasn't been good. $5 from Ruben. Says people that say Aaron Rodgers sucked are just hating. No offensive line, and no number 2 receiver, no running game, and he managed to call the plays. I'll call the right plays and be clutch. I actually don't agree with everything that you're saying here, Ruben. The offensive line, I think, was pretty decent last year. Like, Rodgers obviously helped them out a lot by getting the ball out quickly, but like, the offensive line was the best it's been in years. The pressure rate was the lowest in the league by a pretty wide margin, actually. That's Rodgers and the offensive line working in conjunction. So I think the offensive line, it wasn't perfect, but it was definitely a lot better than it's been here in Pittsburgh in years past. Definitely no number 1 receiver. Completely agree with that. No run game. I think they were top 5 in the league in EPA per rush last year. So if the run game was actually pretty decent for the Steelers last year, honestly. And, you know, I do agree with the fact that he did, you know, get the team into the right plays. He was clutch in some really big moments last year. So I agree with most of that, Ruben, but I'm also going to be honest about some of the things that you're saying he didn't have that he did have last year. All right, man. Still got 3 segments to go. Let's get into the first of our 2 draft target segments here on Steelers Talk. My updated list of round 1 draft targets for the Pittsburgh Steelers is coming at you guys right now. Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry, and today I'm going to be breaking down my list of potential round 1 draft targets for your Pittsburgh Steelers this year after the first initial wave of NFL free agency has come and gone. Some things have shifted. A lot of players have been added to this roster. What does the updated team needs in the draft look like? And then which positions could the Steelers look at to draft in round 1? And which players could be going to the Steelers at number 21 overall in the NFL draft this year? Well, we're going to get into those answers here in just a second, but first, make sure you guys click that subscribe button because we've got extensive NFL draft content for your Pittsburgh Steelers coming up over the next several weeks leading up to the NFL draft. In-depth prospect analysis on all the top players the Steelers are looking at, positional rankings. We're going to have wide receiver, safety, offensive line, all these different positions that the Steelers are going to be looking at in the draft this year. A pre-draft visit tracker keeping you up to date on all the top players they're bringing in for visits, and also weekly 7-round mock drafts. All that content is 100% free, guys. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already, because if you bleed black and gold and you love the NFL draft as well, this is going to be the channel for you. We're going to have draft content on this channel pretty much every single day, every day leading up to the 2026 NFL draft. All right, so now let's talk about kind of the shifting dynamics in terms of what positions the Steelers could be looking at in round 1 this year. And right now, based on all the moves that, Omar Khan and the Steelers have made, I think there's 5 positions that they could potentially go in round 1. All right, quarterback, wide receiver, safety, offensive defensive guard, and then offensive tackle. And we're going to talk about all 5 of these positions one by one. And let's start with quarterback, because there's only one player that I think is in contention to be taken in round 1 this year by the Steelers. And that's Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson. All right, obviously Fernando Mendoza is going to go number 1 to the Las Vegas Raiders, and the big question of round 1 at the quarterback position is who's going to take the chance on Ty Simpson from Bama. There's not really another quarterback that's even getting anything close to round 1 discussion at this position. And listen, man, I think Ty Simpson is a round 1 quarterback. I do. All right, now there's certain things that I don't love about his profile. The limited playing experience in college is definitely a concern. You look at the history of guys that have played the same amount or less games in college than he's played. It's not pretty. And then also he dealt with some injuries this past year, and if he couldn't handle a full college football season and stay healthy, how is he going to handle a 17-game schedule in the NFL consistently and be available for his team? He's also not the biggest guy in the world. He is 6'2", 208 pounds. It's not terrible, but it's certainly not 220 pounds or anything like that. But there's a lot to like on his profile, guys. I think Mike McCarthy is really going to like his mental processing in particular. He played a pro-style offense where he was asked to play under center and do a lot of play-action stuff. And he, especially in that middle portion of the season on film, looked about as good as any college quarterback I've seen recently. Despite his lack of playing experience, he operated that pro-style offense really, really, really well and had to operate full field progression reads, and he did it at a super high level, made some really big-time throws. He's got a better arm than people give him credit for, and he's got some decent pocket presence and some underrated playmaking instincts as well. This guy was a dual-threat quarterback coming out of high school, so he can move a little bit, and he's got some nice playmaking instincts out of structure, scrambling, that sort of stuff. Really, really good at that sort of stuff, man. And I honestly think Ty Simpson might be the most pro-ready quarterback in this class just because of his experience playing in Ryan Grubbs' pro-style offense. Now, my guess is, guys, that Aaron Rodgers is going to be back with the Steelers, and we're going to know that by the time we get to the draft. And I think Pittsburgh just runs the quarterback room back for another season. I think Mason Rudolph will be back as this team's 2. I think Will Howard will be back as this team's 3, probably competing with Mason Rudolph for the QB2 duties in camp. And then maybe they bring back Skylar Thompson as well. He was perfectly fine last year. So would not shock me at all if the Steelers end up just bringing back their room from last year and honestly don't even take a quarterback at all in the NFL draft this year. But if Rodgers retires, I definitely think that Ty Simpson has to be taken seriously as a legitimate possibility in round 1 for Pittsburgh. Now, here's the thing that Steelers fans are really not going to like about Ty Simpson. If the Steelers want him, they might have to trade up to get him and ensure that they get him because the Jets, who currently have Geno Smith as their starting quarterback, they're sitting at 16. And I think, they had the formal meeting with Ty. There's reports that the Jets really like Ty Simpson. If the Steelers want to jump the Jets and get Simpson before he gets to New York at 16, they're going to have to trade up sometime, in the top 15 if they want to get him as their next franchise quarterback, which obviously will cost additional draft capital. So let's say you guys, let me know down there in the comment section, if Aaron Rodgers retires, would you be fine with Ty Simpson being the pick in round 1? Give me a yes or no down there in the comment section. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. In just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our new sponsor here on Steelers Talk, Cheers. While I tell you about Cheers, give me a yes or a no down there in the comments. And guys, after the age of 30, even responsibly drinking alcohol will make you feel less than 100% the next day. Obviously, there are more negative effects from alcohol than just dehydration. Otherwise, how could alcohol be hard on your brain and liver? It has a depressant effect on specific receptors in your brain, and it is toxic to your liver as well. That's where our new sponsor at Cheers comes into the picture. Cheers restores a dual-action after-alcohol aid. Its ingredients support both your brain and your liver after consuming alcohol. Based on research into a novel compound called DHM, Cheers was originally invented by a student at Princeton. DHM demonstrated powerful alcohol-related properties in the brain and liver, so Cheers is designed for how alcohol actually affects your body, not just dehydration. And just to show you guys what the product looks like here, it comes in this little cylinder here with all those capsules in there. Actually, I really like the packaging. The capsules are honestly pretty big, but I think that they're pretty decently sized. And I just don't take my word for it, guys. Cheers has appeared on Shark Tank, is sold in over 30,000 stores worldwide, including Walgreens, CVS, 7-Eleven, and Circle K. They've sold over 50 million doses worldwide. And Cheers' promise is simple. You'll feel about 50% better the next day or your money back. Basically, 2 drinks feel like 1 the next morning. All you do is take 3 capsules after your last drink or before bed. I want to be clear, this product is not for college binge drinking. If you have 12 tequila shots, you're probably still going to feel rough the next day. But if you're a normal adult responsibly drinking and having 2, 3, or 4 drinks a night, you'll feel significantly better with Cheers. So you have the same nights out, only with way better mornings with Cheers today. For a limited time only, our listeners are getting 20% off their entire order by using code CHAT at cheershealth.com. Just head on over to cheershealth.com and use code CHAT for 20% off. After you purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. And a big thank you to Cheers for sponsoring today's edition of Steelers Talk. So now let's shift to the position that I think is the betting favorite and by a wide margin to be the pick in round 1 for the Pittsburgh Steelers this year, and that is the wide receiver position, okay? And right now, when I look at the wide receivers that are on the Steelers' roster, I would say there's 4 guys that have a pretty decent chance of being on the roster heading into next year. And I think they want to have somewhere between 6 and 7 wide receivers on the roster going into the season. All right, just knowing how many receivers McCarthy likes to run in the offense. But right now you got DK Metcalf and Michael Pittman Jr. is kind of the elder statesman, if you will, at wide receiver 1 and 2. Got Roman Wilson, who is a ginormous question mark heading into next year as a former third-round pick. Ben Skoranek is almost certainly going to make the team next year. Glue guy, special teamer, big body blocker type. But then A.T. Perry's an interesting guy that could compete for a roster spot this year. Still a younger guy. Max Hurleman, John Rice Plumlee, Cole Burgess, and Brandon Smith probably not making the roster this year. Obviously, guys, this isn't enough. And they've got to add to this group, and specifically to the starting lineup, I would say, where they need a wide receiver 3 that can threaten the defense vertically and separate versus man coverage, okay? Because you look at the 2 starters that the Steelers have right now, DK Metcalf, Michael Pittman Jr., neither of which really runs the full route tree at a high level, neither of which separates versus man coverage at a high level. DK can separate versus man if it's one-on-one, but if he's getting double covered like he was last year, it's not going to be pretty as we saw last season. So the Steelers need to get somebody that defenses are going to be afraid to play man coverage against next year. And there's a number of guys that the Steelers can turn to in the draft. Here are my top 5 round 1 wide receiver picks for the Pittsburgh Steelers this year. All right, I think Jordan Tyson is my number 1 pick. Now, yes, he has an injury concern, all right, but when was the last time the Steelers took us injury concern seriously, right? They drafted Troy Fautanu in round 1. They drafted Peyton Wilson, who doesn't have an ACL, right? They drafted Corey Trice Jr. They brought in Asante Samuel Jr. like no other team would because of his back issues, right? The Steelers, medical staff just doesn't care about that stuff, guys, especially if it's a player like Jordan Tyson, who I would compare to a guy like CeeDee Lamb, who Mike McCarthy traded up to go get, and Justin Jefferson, somebody that is one of the best receivers in the game. I think Tyson just destroys man coverage. He's one of the most nuanced route runners, especially at his size, that I've seen come out in the NFL draft in a long time. He's good at the catch point. He's good after the catch. Like, this guy is an absolute monster, and if the Steelers can get him, I think that he could be their future number 1 wide receiver. Mekhi Lemon's another guy that I would love, really tough, slot wide receiver that's bigger than you think. He's not 6 foot, so he's technically a smaller guy, but he plays bigger than he is. He makes really awesome contested catches. He runs really nuanced routes. He said he would love to catch passes from Aaron Rodgers at the NFL Combine this year. He can play inside or out. I think he's going to be more of a slot specialist in the league, but really like what Mekhi Lemon brings to the table. Another guy to keep in mind is Omar Cooper Jr., who I'm actually ranking above Carnell Tate. Now, that's not because I think Carnell Tate is necessarily a worse prospect than Omar Cooper Jr. It's that Tate is kind of that bigger body deep threat, and the Steelers already have that in DK Metcalf, and Tate doesn't run bad routes, but I'm not sure if he's a dynamic route runner the way that I think Tyson, Lemon, and Cooper are. Cooper is one of the most complete receivers receivers in this draft, man. He's got great size, awesome lower body strength, so his contact balance is crazy, breaks a lot of tackles. He's got great vision. He runs really crisp routes to all three levels of the field. He's a deep threat. He can make really tough catches down the sideline, deep down the field, whatever. He's a good blocker. Like Omar Cooper Jr. brings everything that you could possibly want, and I think that he would fit what the Steelers are looking for, maybe just a smidge better than what Carnell Tate would. I would still be happy if we get Carnell Tate. He's an awesome receiver prospect. I would still take him in round 1. But the fact that you would probably have to trade up to get him, I think it's less likely. Carnell Tate becomes a Steeler. And then, if you want to trade back into the first for Casey Concepcion, that's another thing that I would be okay with. At 21, it might be a little bit rich for me. He only ran in the mid 4.4s when he was expected to run in the 4.3s at the combine. But his acceleration's awesome. He separates to all three levels of the field. Maybe not the most nuanced route runner. He does have some drop issues, but if the Steelers wanted to take a safety or a guard here in round 1 and then trade back into the first or trade up into the early second round, I think Casey Concepcion is exactly the type of player the Steelers should be looking to add to this wide receiver room. Then we can get to some safety targets here for the Steelers, and the three guys that they might consider or Caleb Downs, Dylan Thieneman, and Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. Now, Downs, you would have to trade up probably into the top 10 to go get. And I'm not sure if the Steelers are going to be willing to do that for a safety. But Dylan Thieneman is a guy that could very realistically be there at 21 for the Steelers, and he's an absolute beast, man. Runs in the 4.3s, awesome instincts on film. The film's incredible from Thieneman, and I think that he would immediately plug in, as someone that can compete with Jaquan Brisker for one of the starting safety spots here in Pittsburgh. But someone that I like as a potential trade up into the late first or earlier second for the Steelers is Emmanuel McNeil-Warren out of Toledo. He's not an athletic freak, so there's a chance he might not even go in round 1, but his film is awesome. He hits hard, and he's good in coverage. Like, honestly, he reminds me a little bit of Jaquan Brisker, only he's better in coverage in my opinion than Brisker is. So keep that one in mind as well. Do think that the Steelers probably want to address this position relatively early because Brisker has a concussion issue. He's only on a 1-year contract. I think the Steelers probably want to find Deshaun Elliott's long-term running mate in this draft class. Then we get to the guard positions here, and Francis Mauigoa probably going to go in the top 10, if not the top 5. And he's technically listed as a guard, but I think he could be an elite or a tackle, I should say. I think he can be an elite guard. And then when it comes to Venga Iwane out of Penn State, I think I finally got the pronunciation right on that, Steelers fans. He would be awesome at 21 as well. Like, if you don't get a Joel Bitonio, if you don't get a Brock Hoffman, if you just don't bring in a starting level veteran at left guard, Iwane can be your starting left guard from day one here in Pittsburgh at the number 21 overall pick. Then you get to the tackles here, and there's a couple guys that I would take at 21 that I'd be fine with, but if you really don't feel good about Dylan Cook or Broderick Jones, Spencer Fano from Utah, he's a right tackle, so you'd have to figure out who would be playing left and who would be playing right between him and Troy Fautanu. Monroe Freeling is another guy that's getting a lot of hype now out of Georgia. Great athlete, a little bit high cut, but I think that he's got a future in the NFL. And then some guys that I would maybe think about trading back into the first 4 or in the early second, Caleb Lomu, the left tackle from Utah, Blake Miller from Clemson, and Max, I can't say his last name, guys, the kid out of Arizona State, really good athlete, and all those guys are expected to be around that range. So who's your guy? Let me know down there in the comment section. Who do you want the Pittsburgh Steelers to draft in round 1 of the 2026 NFL Draft? For me, I want one of the receivers. Like, if I had to pick somebody right now, my ideal pick would be Jordan Tyson from Arizona State. I think he's the perfect fit for what the Steelers need. He's an awesome route runner, can separate to all 3 levels of the field. You got to worry a little bit about the injury stuff, but hey, man, you got to swing for the fences here in a win-now season. And I love Jordan Tyson's profile. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Click that subscribe button. As well, make sure you guys support the channel. We're going to have more draft content on this channel here over the next several days and weeks. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers. All right, second segment in the books. That's just first half of our draft targets coverage. Coming up next, wide receiver draft targets, day 1, day 2, and day 3, all covered in that video. Then we'll finish up today's show by talking about why I believe Pittsburgh's defense, led by Patrick Graham, could be special here in 2026. All right, some super chats here. $5 from Justin Yankuski. Says Chat Sports draft this year. Also, who are you taking? Yes, I believe that the plan is to do a Chat Sports draft this year. And if Jordan Tyson falls to me at 21, that's who I'm taking.
I believe this is the first year with all 32 teams.
Yeah, this is the first year where we have channels for all 32 teams. So it's going to be a similar setup to last year, where we're going to be doing a dual stream with the Commanders report. You guys, I know you guys loved those dual streams last week. But yeah, that's what it's going to be, and we'll be picking for the Steelers and Commanders. And yeah, like if Jordan Tyson makes it to me at 21, that's who I'm taking for the Steelers. I just think that's a perfect fit.
That might be a Commanders target too, though.
Yeah, but I think, honestly, if I'm the Commanders, I want Mekhi Lemon.
Injury concerns are one of those things where it's like...
Mekhi Lemon is higher on my board if I'm the Commanders, but if I'm the Steelers, I like Jordan Tyson more, because the two teams need different things. You know, they have different offenses, different needs, stuff like that. The injury concern stuff plays a factor when you have a top 10 pick. And the Steelers just don't care about injury stuff. So that doesn't really play much of a factor in the calculus for Pittsburgh, in my opinion. So for me, Jordan Tyson is probably going to be the pick if he makes it to me at 27. Hopefully Ponzi's not going to steal or not going to sell state secrets to my fellow Chat Sports GMs here and letting them know my plans. $2 from Bernard Nixon says, people blame A-Rod for the last 3 years. I mean, for the last 3 years here in Pittsburgh? I mean, that would just be crazy. But listen, man, I'll say this. We haven't seen Aaron Rodgers in a situation where he has had a good wide receiver room, a stable organization, and he's been healthy. He hasn't had those three things since 2021, his last MVP season. 2022, he broke his thumb midseason and played through it. Also, he didn't have Devontae Adams in Green Bay that year. Also, in 2023, tore his Achilles. 2024, dealt with a lot of other injuries while coming off the Achilles, and that was a complete shit show of an organization, the New York Jets were. He had the receivers, but he didn't have the health, and he didn't have the organization. Then last year, he somewhat had the health, right? He played through another broken finger on his non-throwing hand this time, but he didn't have the receivers, right? He had the organization. He kind of had the health, but he didn't have the receivers. Hopefully this year is the first time in the last several years Rodgers has all three. Hopefully Mike McCarthy is a stable enough leader of men. Hopefully, he has the weapons that he hasn't had the last several years. And hopefully, he has the health. If he has all three of those things, I think he has a chance to have the best season he's had since 2021. $5 from Bernard says there are not 21 QBs better than A-Rod. Mulsey is tripping. I agree, Bernard. I think he's definitely in the top 20. I would argue probably in the top 15 in that range. I still think he's a good starting quarterback. I don't think he's necessarily a great one or an elite one anymore. But I still think he's more than capable of being a highly functional QB with a great supporting cast around him. All right. Is that it? Oh, another 5 from Bernard says, what's the ceiling with Cousins, at least with Rodgers? He's one of the best of all time. In the AFC North, the ceiling with Cousins, I think you probably win 7 games this year with Cousins. And that's if the defense is going to be as good as I think it's going to be. I think Kirk Cousins will be one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the league if he's brought in. He just doesn't have any more arm strength. And in this division where you're playing outside almost every single week, I just don't see that arm being able to play outside consistently. All right, we got one more before we get into our next segment here on the show. From Rad Doctor, $10. Says, why can't Rodgers just commit and not make it such a drama show every year? Wish I knew, Rad Doctor. I was hoping that he was going to make his decision before free agency. Obviously, that didn't work. And then last week, we were hoping he was going to make his decision at some point during the first week of free agency, and that hasn't worked out. And now Rappaport is saying, he's going to make it by the end of the month. And, I'm sure we'll get to the end of the month, and, he's going to do it before the NFL draft. And then It's just it's so similar to what it was last year. Now, I would love, and I'm sure the team would love, for Rodgers to be signed and wanting to participate in the offseason program, which starts on April 21st. Because it's a new coaching staff and a new offense and new players being brought in. I'm sure the team would love for Rodgers to be back for that. But at this point, we're kind of in the situation that we were in last year, where maybe outside of like some trade possibilities like Mac Jones, Derek Carr, Will Levis, Anthony Richardson, the guys available on the free agency market suck dick. And they're not even close to what Aaron Rodgers is as a quarterback at this point. Like, I think Aaron Rodgers is still pretty easily a top 20 quarterback in this league at least, maybe top 15. And all the rest of the quarterbacks, Joe Flacco, Kirk Cousins, all the guys that are still available in free agency, they're not in the top 32. So I think there's a pretty big gap between Rodgers and the rest of the group. I'll say this, man. Whatever Rodgers is telling the Steelers in these conversations, it has them believing he's coming back. So it feels like last year where, it's frustrating for fans because we just want to know what the answer is and we just don't. But we have a pretty good idea at this point. I feel like Rodgers is almost certainly going to be back next year. All right, man, let's get into our next segment here. We talked about general round one draft targets. Now let's break down the wide receiver position in general, starting in round one, going to day two, and then we'll get into day three as well with some sleepers. So let's get into it right now. Steelers fans, I believe the wide receiver position will be the number one priority for the Pittsburgh Steelers heading into the 2026 NFL Draft, where I believe they will at least double dip and maybe even triple dip at this position with their 12 draft picks that they currently possess in this year's NFL Draft. They're trying to get younger. They're trying to get more explosive in this room. Today on the show, I'm going to be breaking down my list of targets for the Pittsburgh Steelers at the wide receiver position in the NFL Draft on days 1, 2, and 3. Breaking down every single player that I think would be a great value for the Pittsburgh Steelers at the wide receiver position this year. Now, if you guys love the NFL Draft and you bleed black and gold, this is going to be the channel for you guys. We got in-depth prospect analysis and all the top prospects that the Steelers are looking at this year. Positional rankings for all the top positions of need for the Steelers before the draft, just like we're doing today for wide receivers. Pre-draft visit tracker for all the top guys that the Steelers are looking at and bringing in for visits this year. Also, weekly 7-round mock drafts where we throw around different ideas and different strategies that Omar Khan could do once we get the draft night, and all that content is 100% free. So if you don't want to miss any of our daily NFL draft coverage here surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers, make sure you guys click that subscribe button because draft season is just getting started. All right, so now I want to start today's show by telling you guys that I do expect the Pittsburgh Steelers to draft 2 and maybe even 3 wide receivers in the NFL draft this year. You have the draft picks to be able to invest that many picks in one specific position. You have 12 of them this year, and I look at the wide receivers that are currently on the roster for the Steelers, and you've got kind of your elder statesmen at the top of the totem pole there with DK Metcalf and Michael Pittman Jr., and then Roman Wilson is kind of like this big question mark. I don't think that Omar Khan wants to completely give up on him, but at the same time, you don't want to have to depend on him like you did last year. Ben Skoronek's going to be more of just a special teams ace and glue guy, but he's going to make the roster as well. And I think A.T. Perry's interesting, but he's far from a certainty of making the team, and he's definitely somebody you don't want to completely depend on heading into the year. And obviously, like, this room is not enough. So the question is, will the Steelers address the rest of these spots that are going to be on the Steelers roster in free agency or in the draft? And I think with Roman kind of being in that weird spot where he could be wide receiver 3, he could be wide receiver 4, he could not be on the roster next year. The Steelers need to bring in more young competition alongside Roman Wilson to kind of figure out those positions. And I think especially what the Steelers need in terms of what complements DK Metcalf and Michael Pittman Jr. is somebody that's a route runner that can can separate versus man coverage and then also threaten the defense vertically, all right, to open things up for DK and for Michael Pittman Jr. underneath. Obviously, DK can be a vertical threat as well, but if he's the only vertical threat in this starting lineup, defenses can kind of hone in on him, and he's going to get less one-on-one opportunities down the field. So those are the two things I'm looking for specifically in round one for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I need somebody that can separate versus man consistently, somebody that can play in the slot and outside, and somebody that can threaten the defense deep. And for me, the 5 guys that I would keep my eye on here in order for the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think Jordan Tyson would be my number 1 pick, separates to all levels of the field, super nuanced route runner, one of the crispest route runners I've seen in a while. Good after the catch, good size. Reminds me a lot of CeeDee Lamb, who, by the way, Mike McCarthy and the Cowboys traded up to go get way back when. And I think that Mike McCarthy's going to look at Jordan Tyson and see the same thing that I do. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if he ends up being the pick for Pittsburgh. But Mekhi Lemon is another guy that fits that bill to me. A nuanced route runner, a contested catch demon, even at his size, good after the catch, tough player, like him as well. Omar Cooper Jr., Swiss Army knife, good route runner to all 3 levels, really good contested catch ability. Just remember that awesome catch he had to win the game against Penn State this year for Indiana. He's awesome after the catch, great lower body strength and contact balance. He just brings it all to me, in my opinion, guys. Carnell Tate would be 4th on my list, because he's more of that true outside vertical deep threat, and I'm not sure if that's exactly what the Steelers are looking for, but he's talented enough where if he falls to number 24 and the other 3 guys are off the board, that you can take Carnell Tate. And then if you want to trade back into the first, Casey Concepcion from Texas A&M is somebody that I would consider. I was disappointed with his 40 time. He's like in the mid 4.4s for somebody that's really known for his speed. So that's a little bit concerning. You pair that with the drops that he had this past year. He has a lot of really awesome flashes, and I think he's awesome with the ball in his hands, and I think he brings everything the Steelers are looking for, but with the 40 time, the drop stuff, I don't know if I feel comfortable taking him at 21, but if you want to trade up, either in late round 1 or early round 2 for Concepcion, I think that would be a good pickup for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And for me, guys, he brings everything that you want in terms of the athleticism, the vision out in space, the acceleration. Obviously, in shorts, he didn't run a great 40 time at the combine, but on film, the speed looks real. He runs away from people, and he takes awesome angles, so I'm not really that worried about Concepcion. Apparently he interviewed extremely well as well, and the Steelers were very impressed with him in their formal interview with him. But the 2 things that are concerning is inconsistent hands and then route running technique. There is some inconsistency in both of those, all right? So he's got a lot of talent. I think he's got the potential to be maybe even a potential number 1 receiver someday, definitely a high-end number 2. So I have a late round for round 1 and early round 2 grade on Mr. Concepcion, and I would love for him to be a Pittsburgh Steeler, but like I said, I would prefer him to be more of a trade back into the first, 28 to 32 type of situation, instead of at number 21 overall. Now, if you guys want to see my full scouting reports on the other 4, talking about Cooper, talking about Lemon, talking about Tate, and talking about Jordan Tyson, we actually did a full video on those guys a couple weeks ago. I'll put the chip to that one in the top right of today's show if you want to learn a little bit more about some other top wide receiver targets for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So who's your guy? Let me know down there in the comments section. Which wide receiver should Pittsburgh target in round 1 this year? Are you a Jordan Tyson guy? Do you want them to go get Mekhi Lemon, Omar Cooper Jr.? What do you want them to do? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. In just a second here, I'm going to tell you about an awesome merch opportunity that we have on our website for you guys to take advantage of. While I tell you about that, let me know which receiver you would want the Steelers to draft in round 1 this year. If you guys hate the Baltimore Ravens as much as we do here on Steelers Talk, we got a t-shirt just for that, man. An F the Ravens Steelers Talk t-shirt is now available up on our website right now, chatsports.com/FRavens. If you want to check that out today, these t-shirts are $29.99. The link is down there in the comments and description if you guys want to check those out. You guys have been asking for an F the Ravens t-shirt here for a couple of years now, and we got quite a few t-shirts available for you guys on our website right now that you can check out right now. Go chatsports.com/FRavens if you want a new Steelers versus Ravens game day shirt in your closet for this upcoming season. All right, so now moving our focus to day 2 and day 3. And we can really talk about rounds 2 through 4, because I think what the Steelers' plan is they're going to bring in, a Jordan Tyson or a Mekhi Lemon or an Omar Cooper Jr. to compete with Roman Wilson for wide receiver 3. And I think the expectation is that first-round rookie is going to beat Roman out in camp. Okay, unless Roman just completely balls out, the first-round rookie is going to get that number 3 spot. But then I think they're also going to take another receiver somewhere between rounds 2 and 4, where they're going to bring in another guy to compete with Roman for that wide receiver 4 spot. Because if Roman stinks next year, you don't want him as your wide receiver 4, because if someone gets hurt, you have a receiver that can't play out there, right? So you want to have that insurance, and I think bringing in a guy here in rounds 2 through 4 that you think could be a good wide receiver 2 someday to whoever you draft in round 1 is going to be something that the Steelers do, because they got a number of picks in round 3 and 4 in particular. A lot of good players in this range as well. So here are the top 10 guys that I'm keeping my eye on here that are expected to be somewhere between round 2 and round 4 based on the consensus big board. Zachariah Branch, if you're looking for a lot of speed, a lot of explosiveness, and a lot of yak ability, definitely keep your eye on Zachariah Branch in round 2 for the Steelers if Pittsburgh goes offensive line or guard or safety in round 1, or quarterback for that matter. I really like Skylar Bell out of UConn. I think he runs really crisp routes, and I think that he could be an awesome wide receiver 4 for somebody in his first year, and then eventually be a starter, super efficient receiver from UConn. Deion Burks doesn't have the production necessarily at Oklahoma from last year, and he is undersized, but man, he is explosive as all get out, all right? And I think he's got better ball skills than he gets credit for. I think that he would be an awesome addition to this team as a wide receiver 4 type. Antonio Williams from Clemson, slot extraordinaire. If the Steelers get somebody that's going to be more of an outside presence later on in his career, and you want somebody to pair with him that's more of a slot weapon, Antonio Williams definitely fits that. Fast guy, good route runner with good hands from the slot. I think he's a slot-only guy, so I think he will go day 2, but he makes a lot of sense there. Brennan Thompson from Mississippi State has a lot of juice. He ran in the 4.3s, like he was just absolutely flying, and he just separates versus man coverage down the field. Like, he is just unbelievable in that regard. Chris Brazzell from Tennessee, kind of a limited route tree shown at Tennessee, but I think he's got the physical tools to be able to run a more diverse route tree in the league. He also has decent hands and really good size, and he ran in the 4.3s. So, he's certainly somebody that I think will probably go round 2. Jeremy Bernard from Alabama, one of the biggest winners of the Combine, in my opinion, ran in the 4.4s. A lot of people thought he was going to run in the 4.5s because of the nature in which he plays on film, but really nuanced and tempoed routes. He's got good hands. He's ready to play in the NFL right away, in my opinion. Same thing goes for Elijah Surratt from Indiana. Good route runner, savvy route runner for his size, really good hands, phenomenal back shoulder receiver. So, Rodgers has worked really well with back shoulder guys in the past. Maybe Surratt makes some sense for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Ted Hurst, I think I'm a little bit lower on Hurst than some, but if you want to get him in late round 3, early round 4, I think that makes some sense. He's got a lot of juice to him and can make some spectacular catches. Some people compare him to George Pickens. I think he's more of a Walmart version of George Pickens, but, still a very talented player. Then Bryce Lance, more of a true deep threat. So, somebody you might want to consider in round 4, but he's got some development as a route runner if he wants to make it big in the league. All right, now let's go into day 3, where it really wouldn't surprise me if the Steelers triple dip at the wide receiver position as well this season, guys. Here in rounds 5 through 7, wouldn't surprise me if they bring in another guy here that maybe has more of a special teams kind of background. Maybe he can compete with Roman Wilson, where if Roman is just terrible next year, he can compete for a roster spot with Roman Wilson, right? And if Roman just stinks, you can go with this later round rookie as opposed to feeling like you're obligated to give Roman Wilson a roster spot when he hasn't earned it 3 years into his NFL career. So this pick would be more of the put pressure on Roman Wilson pick, but with 12 draft picks, why not get some good receivers? There's some really good value on day 3, in my opinion. Kevin Coleman Jr. from Mizzou reminds me a lot of Jordan Addison, man. I think he's one of the more slept-on receivers in this class. Super crisp route runner, much better hands than he gets credit for. Good after the catch as well. I would even be fine taking Coleman even at pick 99. Like, I think that highly of Coleman, but right now the consensus big board is saying he's going to be an early 5th-round pick. Lewis Bond from Boston College, only ranking 241st on the consensus big board right now. One of the better slot receivers in this draft. Like, I don't think there's that much of a difference between Antonio Williams and Lewis Bond. Williams is a lot faster, but Bond, like, supernatural hands, runs super crisp routes, separates at the break super well. For a day 3 pick, getting a slot specialist like that, sign me up for that every day of the week. Jordan Hudson at 318th on the consensus big board as like a 7th-round pick. He is super, super good, at everything. He's got good size, good run after ability, good route running ability. He's not great in any one specific area, but, as a depth receiver of the future, somebody that might have some wide receiver 3 upside in the 7th or 6th round, that would make a lot of sense to me. Dazon Stribling ran really fast at the combine, one of these big and fast and tall Ole Miss receivers that you could get on day 3. Eric McAllister was super efficient at TCU last year. Caden Weegan, I've taken him in a number of my mock drafts. He's a really good special teamer, but he was just cooking people in the one-on-ones at Shrine Bowl this year. Tyron Montgomery is somebody that obviously small school dude that's getting a lot of attention right now. Kendrick Law, a really athletic dude that honestly underperformed at the combine in terms of the athletic testing. So I think he is going to go pretty, mid to late day 3. But he's really good after the catch, has some good film in that regard. Eli Heidenreich, another special teams potential guy, coming out as a running back actually, but he played receiver at Navy, so keep an eye on him. And then Jeff Caldwell, who ran a really fast 40 at his size, keep an eye on him. He actually got a top 30 visit with the Pittsburgh Steelers this week. Now, some receivers that I'm avoiding, all right? And the guys that I'm generally avoiding are like the true outside receivers that don't really run a full route tree, those types of guys. Denzel Boston, he's going to be more of a true X to me. That's not what the Steelers need in this wide receiver room. I think he's a damn good player. Somebody, cough, cough, Buffalo, probably going to be very happy to get him. I just don't think he's what the Steelers need. Same thing goes for Malachi Fields. He can make some unbelievable catches, and he moves really well for a guy of his size. It's just he's going to be more of a true X as well. Chris Bell, love him as a player. He reminds me a lot of Rashee Rice coming out of SMU, and Bell, of course, coming out of Louisville, but big body, good yak guy. It's just I think the Steelers need a little bit more route running than what Bell brings to the table. And Jacoby Lane, who I think is probably the most overrated receiver in this class, in my opinion. He makes some spectacular catches, but he's not great after the catch. He doesn't really run routes. He doesn't separate. And he's had some injury stuff as well, so I'm not the biggest fan of Jacoby Lane either. So those are the 4 guys that if I'm the Steelers, I'm probably avoiding, and they're probably not the best fits for what the Steelers need right now. So who's your sleeper? Let me know down there in the comment section. Which sleeper day 3 wide receiver should Pittsburgh draft in the later rounds this year? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. I've got multiple receivers that I would love to take on day 3, and I think the Steelers, there's a pretty decent chance they take 3 receivers in the NFL draft this year. But that'll be it for today's edition of Steelers Talk by Chat Sports. I hope you enjoyed my breakdown here of my list of the top wide receiver draft targets for the Pittsburgh Steelers today. We're going to be doing breakdowns like this for every single position of need for the Pittsburgh Steelers before we get to the NFL draft at the end of April. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you don't want to miss any of those other videos. Until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers. All right, we got one more segment to get to here, and it is a shift to Patrick Graham and the Steelers defense this year and why I believe Pittsburgh's defense this year has a chance to be special, all right, like a top 3 defense in the league. And obviously that was the expectation that we had for this defense last year, and they didn't live up to it. So I understand why a lot of Steelers fans are hesitant, let's call it, to embrace that kind of idea. But we got a new sheriff in town, man. His name is Patrick Graham, and I think Steelers fans are going to love Patrick Graham this upcoming season. He's never been on like a legitimately awesome roster. He's never had an awesome roster to work with, whether it was in Miami, whether it was in New York, whether it was in Las Vegas. He's always had lackluster rosters, and he's always, in my opinion, done a really good job with that lack of talent. And now he's inheriting one of the most talented defensive rosters in football. I'm really excited to see what he's going to be able to do, guys. I can't wait to talk about him right now. Let's do it. Let's get into it right now, why I believe the Pittsburgh Steelers defense is about to be special in 2026. My fellow Steelers fans, I believe that the 2026 Pittsburgh Steelers defense has a chance to be special. And I know what you're telling me at home, but Jack, this is what we said about the Steelers defense the last several years, and they never live up to the hype. Why should we believe you this time? Well, I believe that we've got a lot of changes coming here in Pittsburgh, specifically in the coaching and scheme department, that are very, very excited, or that I'm very, very excited for heading into the 2026 season. I think this change from Mike Tomlin and Terrell Austin, a group that really didn't get the most out of their very expensive defenses over the last several years, to Patrick Graham, who has gotten the most out of some pretty lackluster groups over the last several years, is going to be one that leads to some pretty special stuff here in Pittsburgh in 2026 and brings back the great tradition of elite defenses here in the Steel City. Before we get into the content today, and I tell you why I believe the Steelers defense has a good chance to be special in 2026, make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon if you're liking the moves that the Pittsburgh Steelers have made to the defense this year. The defensive coordinator hire, the coaching hires, bringing in Jamel Dean and all these players that we're going to be talking about today, Sebastian Joseph Day, Jaquan Brisker. If you're liking the way that this Pittsburgh Steelers defense is looking, click that thumbs up icon to support the channel and show your support for this football team. All right, so first, Patrick Graham is the new defensive coordinator here in Pittsburgh, and I've already made a couple videos breaking down why I believe in Patrick Graham as a defensive play caller, why I believe he's a big upgrade compared to what Mike Tomlin and Terrell Austin was providing here in Pittsburgh. And what PG is kind of known for, as you guys know, if you've been watching the channel, is creativity and adaptability. Like, this guy has ran every defense under the sun, from a Steve Spagnuolo type 4-2 nickel base defense to a Bill Belichick style defense to two high safety quarters and cover 6 heavy stuff to Flores chaos with a bunch of cover 0 to the Seattle 3. This guy has called a bunch of different defensive systems, and the reason for that is he adapts his play calling and what his defenses run, both from a coverage and from a defensive front perspective, based on the opponent that he plays every week and the personnel that he has at his disposal. And I love that philosophy. It's the same philosophy that Bill Belichick had in the National Football League, and it's what allowed him to consistently have top 10 defenses, and why Bill Belichick is considered one of the greatest defensive minds in football history. And now Patrick Graham has by far, in my opinion, the most talent that he's ever had to work with as a defensive play caller. Like, he was a defensive coordinator in Miami under Flores for a year. That was pretty much a practice squad level defense, and they were still in the top 10 that year, by the way. Then he goes to New York, and he turned a group that had nobody on it, essentially, and turned them into a very solid defense with one of the more unique defensive structures we've seen in the last decade in the National Football League, using 3 safety stuff. Then he goes, obviously, to Las Vegas, where he played a different defense every single year there. Like, one year they were man-heavy, and then they went to cover 4 and cover 6 heavy, and then this past year they played a lot of cover 3 and did the Pete Carroll stuff. So Patrick Graham does a lot of different stuff, guys, and now he's been, before he's been somebody that's gotten the most out of some lackluster talent. Now he has got an opportunity to get the most out of a legitimately great and talented defensive roster here in Pittsburgh that we're going to talk about in the second half of today's video, and I'm going to tell you why and how I believe Patrick Graham is about to get the most out of this Steelers defensive talent. But let me know down there in the comments section, grade Patrick Graham as a defensive coordinator in the National Football League. Do you think he's an A-level guy, B-level guy, C, D, or F? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at Cheers. While I tell you about our sponsor today, give me an A, B, C, D, or F down there in the comments. And with that, let's have a word from our sponsor today at Cheers. And after the age of 30, guys, even responsibly drinking alcohol will make you feel less than 100% the next day. Obviously, there are more negative effects from alcohol than just dehydration. Otherwise, how could alcohol be hard on your brain and liver? It has a depressant effect on specific receptors in your brain, and it is also toxic to your liver as well. That's where our new sponsor at Cheers comes in. Cheers Restore is a dual-action after-alcohol aid. Its ingredients support both your brain and your liver after consuming alcohol. Based on research into a novel compound called DHM, Cheers was originally invented by a student at Princeton. DHM demonstrated powerful alcohol-related properties in the brain and liver. So Cheers is designed for how alcohol actually affects your body, not just dehydration. I actually have a sample, kind of cartridge here from our friends at Cheers. What you'll get is kind of like this little package here with the cartridges in there. It's got very nice branding, and it's available to you whenever you need it. And don't just take my word on this stuff, guys. Cheers has appeared on Shark Tank. It's even sold 30,000, and it's sold in 30,000 stores, including Walgreens, CVS, 7-Eleven, and Circle K, and they've sold over 50 million doses worldwide. Cheers' promise is simple. You'll feel about 50% better the next day, or you get your money back. Basically, 2 drinks feel like 1 the next morning. All you do is take 3 capsules after your last drink or before bed, and I want to make abundantly clear, this product is not for college binge drinking, all right? If you have 12 tequila shots, for example, you're probably still going to feel rough the next morning. But if you're a normal adult that's responsibly drinking 2, 3, or 4 drinks, you'll feel significantly better with Cheers. So have your same nights out, only with way better mornings with Cheers today. For a limited time only, our listeners are getting 20% off their entire order by using code CHAT at cheershealth.com. Just head on over to cheershealth.com and use code CHAT for 20% off today. After you purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. And a big thank you to Cheers for sponsoring today's edition of Steelers Talk. Terms of the schematics that Patrick Graham is going to be bringing in here to Pittsburgh, I'm expecting a defense that's pretty man-heavy. It's going to be a 3-4 base defense, but they're going to run a pretty heavy dose of big nickel packages here in Pittsburgh, similar to what you see from some of the best defenses in the league, like the Chargers and the Ravens and the Seattle Seahawks last year. You guys can take a look here at this 5-man front that we're expecting to see from the Pittsburgh Steelers next year, where you've got Alex Highsmith, Cam Hayward, Sebastian Joseph Day, and then Derek Harmon along the interior. You got TJ Watt on the outside as well. But then when you get to your 4-man fronts, when you play your big nickel stuff, you've got Alex Highsmith, you've got Cam Hayward, Derek Harmon, and TJ Watt on that front, and that's a pretty darn good, 4-man front there. If you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, you can rotate in Sebastian Joseph Day, Keanu Benton, Y.A. Black, Azesi Ademiwu, all these guys that you also have on the roster, and then a possible NASCAR package, which is, what you put out there in those 3rd and long situations when you want to get your best pass rushers out there. You could think about moving TJ Watt inside a little bit and putting Herbig, Watt, and Highsmith out there all at the same time. And then you've got Keanu Benton at that other defensive tackle spot as well, somebody that's super disruptive. That 4 would definitely put fear in the hearts of opposing quarterbacks on those 3rd and long situations. And I would expect Patrick Graham to be very creative with those 3rd down fronts. He's always been somebody that mixes and matches and gets creative with how he lines up his defensive linemen, with his sim pressure looks, all the stuff that he brings to the table. If you are tired of kind of the boring, kind of old school Mike Tomlin, Terrell Austin defense, well, you don't have to deal with that anymore, man. Patrick Graham is going to be bringing a lot of creative stuff in terms of the blitz packages that he's going to be running. Then when it comes to the linebacker room, Patrick Queen, Peyton Wilson obviously haven't played up to the standards that we have kind of hoped that they would reach over the last 2 years, but I think it's fair to kind of not assume, but, maybe hope that both of those guys kind of take a step up with Patrick Graham as the new defensive coordinator running a modern NFL defense here in Pittsburgh compared to what they were asked to do in that Terrell Austin, Mike Tomlin defense over the last couple of seasons. Remember, Patrick Queen is still young. He's still an amazing athlete at his position. He's obviously drafted in the 1st round for a reason, and he's a former All-Pro when he's operating in a defense that uses his talents in the correct ways. And it was very clear, based on Patrick Queen's comments throughout the year last year, that he did not feel like he was being used in the correct ways. And we've seen other linebackers like Robert Spillane and Devin Bush leave the Steelers and play really good football elsewhere. And, we've seen Patrick Graham in particular fix the career of Robert Spillane. Spillane's viewed as one of the best inside linebackers in football right now. with the New England Patriots because of the revival that he had with the Las Vegas Raiders with Patrick Graham as his defensive coordinator. So we know how athletic and how talented Patrick Queen and Peyton Wilson are. Hopefully Patrick Graham is going to be able to get the most out of that crew. And then you look at the secondary, and like you've got the base secondary here where you've got Joey Porter Jr. And Jamel Dean on the outside. You've got Jalen Ramsey and Deshaun Elliott at the safety positions, when you are in that base 3-4. But then where I think they're going to be in for most of the time, I think they're going to be living in big nickel, where you're going to be able to put Jalen Ramsey in that big nickel spot where he's going to essentially be like a hybrid linebacker slot defender that you see Nick Emenwari play, and you see Derwin James play with the Chargers, and some of the best defenses in the National Football League have that dynamic big nickel player, and I think Ramsey is going to provide that. And then when they go to their nickel packages, they have Jaquan Brisker to play that other safety position. So I really like where that room is at right now. And like I was saying, guys, Jalen Ramsey as that big nickel, I think will be the straw that kind of stirs the drink there and kind of be the X factor of the group, because what he allows is this team can just stay in nickel whenever they want, because he is that good of a run defender where he can be out there as essentially a hybrid linebacker. Like, he's been one of the best tackling and run defending defensive backs in football for a long time, but he's also good enough in coverage to play the slot, and he's anticipatory, and he can read the eyes of the quarterback when he's allowed to play that middle of the field role. Like, that was the best that we saw from him last year. Like, when he was playing that nickel kind of star role, that's where he was playing best for the Pittsburgh Steelers last year. Unfortunately, they didn't have the depth at safety that they wanted, and they had to move him to safety mid-season. But at the end of the day, man, like, you bring in Brisker, you still have Elliott, and now you have the opportunity to put Ramsey back where he plays his best football. And I still think Ramsey can play that role at a super, super high level. Like, he still, last year, was one of the best run-defending defensive backs in football. Like, he makes every single tackle, essentially. He still hits really freaking hard. And, like, when he plays that nickel role, that's where he's most comfortable. And that's honestly where he's played some of the best football of his career, with the Rams and with the Dolphins and now with the Steelers. And as long as this safety room can stay healthy, man, like, Jalen Ramsey, in my opinion, can still be one of the better, nickel players in the National Football League next season, and he's kind of the thing that could take this Steelers defense from good to potentially great. Now, another key note here is the man coverage ability at outside corner here in Pittsburgh. Well, you've got Joey Porter Jr., but you also bring in Jamel Dean, and both of those guys played super, super well in man coverage this past year. Jamel Dean is one of the best tackling corners in football as well. Hopefully some of that can rub off on Joey Porter Jr., because JPJ's got the long arms to be a great run defender. He really does. And just sometimes, man, the technique is not what you want to see from him. But in terms of being able to play press and just, play bully ball against these wide receivers on the outside, the Steelers tried to do that last year with Darius Slay on the outside, and we all know how that worked out for him. It did not work out, and then they tried to put Jalen Ramsey out there. He's not capable of playing that brand of football anymore. But guess what? Jamel Dean, even at 29 years old, still more than capable of doing it. And the best defenses in football play a lot of man. Like Belichick, when he could, he played a lot of man. When Graham has been allowed to play man, he's done it. Obviously, like Denver and Houston, all these top defenses, they play a lot of man coverage. So you put all this together, right? You look at what the defensive line looks like, the different kind of mismatches that you can put in there with the different personnel packages you can put on the defensive line. You've got the talent at the second level at linebacker, and then you've got obviously the secondary there with Jalen Ramsey at big nickel. You've got the man corners on the outside. I'm telling you, man, if PG knows what the hell he's doing as a defensive play caller, this Steelers defense has a chance to be special. I think it could be in the top 3 conversation in the league, and hopefully this year we actually have a defensive coordinator capable of getting the job done. So let me know, true or false, down there in the comments section. The Steelers will have a top 5 defense next season. Give me a T for true or F for false. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. I certainly think that this is possible here, but let me know what you guys think down there in the comments. All right, that'll be it for today's edition of Steelers Talk by Chat Sports. Thank you guys for joining me here today. We're going to continue to get you guys great Steelers content all throughout the 2026 offseason, so if you don't want to miss a thing, click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Till next time, guys, here we go, Steelers. Bernard with a 2. It says, Jack, do you think Aaron Rodgers is overrated? No, I think he's underrated. I think people want to say that Rodgers sucks and he's not good anymore. I think Rodgers is at the tier of quarterback where if you have an excellent supporting cast around him, he can still be an effective NFL starter. But he's definitely not somebody at this point, in my opinion, that's going to, elevate a bad roster or elevate bad play calling or elevate a bad receiver room. All right? Or at least not to a level where he's going to be like a top 10 performer. I think last year he did what he could with the players that he had around him and the play calling that he had around him and the defense that was around him. That wasn't very fantastic, I'll say. It was a decent defense. It wasn't a great defense in Pittsburgh last year. But, people just want to say that Rodgers is not even in the top 20 anymore. Yes, I believe he's in that conversation for top 15 best QBs in the game. He's still got an elite mind, still has good arm talent. Is smart with the football, doesn't turn the football over. He's essentially a game manager at this point, but Tom Brady was a game manager, right? Like Matthew Stafford in some ways is a game manager. These guys are guys that need great play calling and great playmakers around them, and I think that that's something that can be provided for Aaron Rodgers this year. I like where the roster's at. Why? No. I put Keanu Benton's photo for Derek Harmon. Yeah. So that's on me. Ponzi's going to have to fix that in post-prod. It's why I didn't mention it in the video. But that's an F. Sperry moment. Don't worry, guys. I know what Derek Harmon and Keanu Benton look like. It was just a mess up in terms of the graphics today, getting the show ready. But, don't worry, guys. I know what those two look like. All right. Do we have any more Super Chats? That's it. All right. So F. Sperry in the chat to finish the show here for the Keanu Benton photo mess up. But I want to say thank you to everybody that supported us here today. That's here. We still got over 600 people watching live, man. These live shows this offseason have just been going off. Next time we're planning on being live is Thursday, same time, same place, around 6 p.m. Eastern time or so. We'll have a bunch of awesome Steelers content for you guys, getting you ready for the weekend, and I'm sure we'll learn some stuff here. What's that? Last minute super chat? Oh, so Bernard says, for his career. Overrated for his career. He's considered one of the best quarterbacks of all time, so I don't think that's overrated. He's only got one championship, but there's a shit ton of all-time great quarterbacks with just one. So that's he is a champion. You can't take that away from him, and he's got some of the best all-time numbers in NFL history. So no, I think that he's not over. I think he's properly rated in the grand scheme of the game. I think he's underrated right now. That's where I'm at with Aaron Rodgers. All right, man. Well, that'll be it for today's show. We're going to continue to get you guys great Steelers content all throughout the week. Next time we'll be live, unless we get a Rodgers decision. We'll be Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern time. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Till next time, guys. Here we go, Steelers.